Thank you. The problems for both parties now is that their extreme base on either side suffers from donor fatigue on all levels. Further, the ambient noise created by all the money raised, by the commercials, the emails, Twitters, and throughout all of the media has desensitized the general public to the point of revulsion for the political process. This is more than just an apathy that has been inflicted on the public. It is a sickness in the body politic, the same as if you and I were to become ill with cancer. I use cancer as an analogy because if we do not recognize this cancer and allow parties to break free from the constraints of ideology, they will fall into the abyss ruled by an oligarchy. The government will lose all power to rule those of wealth. These extremes and wealthy parties are the real domestic terrorists our society faces today. Thank you. The international bankers who have crushed our economy not once but twice in the span of 70 years are the most clear and immediate adversaries. Regardless of the occupant in the White House, we have watched with ever-growing anxiety the result of 25 years of public neglect in our economy, our infrastructure, our public school system, and our political system. However, ideology which drives such an individual is the real underlying evil that we face. Thank you very much. This crisis of ideology is not to be laid at the feet of either party, but both parties have made their own points, both good and bad, and made their own mistakes. But the creeping control by the financial sector and the mega-wealthy must be broken, or at best put in check, or we risk being ruled by the elite. And all the work of our founding fathers in the greatest experience of democracy will have been for naught. Now, there are those who are quick to call this an attack on the wealthy, or some kind of class warfare. But the problem is more insidious. Capital should be the fuel that drives democracy. It is not the driver. It is not the entire engine. Thank you. What has happened over the last 25 years is the greed for capital, not even for power or conquest, has replaced the ideals of democracy. The symptomology is like the fever to the flu. It is the pervasive greed which has invaded every aspect of all professions of our society. More on this point as well. Our founding fathers in their time clearly show what has been lost to the masses and hidden by the wealthy, self-proclaimed, and those elites. The founding fathers were learned and wealthy men of their colonies, but they did not lose sight of their humble beginnings and the obligation to the greater good of all members of society. They suffered from the tyrannical dictates of a wealthy and privileged oligarchical class with a dictatorial king from across the ocean in England. We must reverse the neglect and decline of the American public. It is for this country to understand again that to be strong at home, you must be strong abroad. And to be strong abroad, you must be strong at home. Thank you. Some systems like socialism, communism, or Marxism have attempted to operate as a utopian society without capital. Admirable as this universal concept may seem, they failed miserably at the cost of millions of lives. All the time they were declaring that they were promoting a utilitarian society, they allowed the rise of a dictatorial process. The most recent and prime example being the former Soviet Union. China, while claiming to still be a communist state, has abandoned all but the most rigid controls of the ideology and unbridled a threatening form of capitalism. It's capitalism light. If capitalism won the Cold War over communism and socialism, why do the problems of a democratic society persist to the point of financial collapse? The answer is simple. Ideology of the oligarchy has once again reared its ugly head. Unlike France of the late 1700s, the players are shielded now behind a golden curtain of the financial markets. Thank you. We must be honest and understand that power still rules. The problem with the body politic is that money is not equated with power. Power and money are still considered one and the same. This is the time of the consumer-driven society. On the international side, we have chosen ideology over common sense and sacrificed the most fundamental tool of American power in the world, moral superiority in the rule of law. Thank you. After the Vietnam War, production had begun again, and it was thought that better times were coming. Ronald Reagan, Bush 1, had left Texas and the rest of the middle class of this country with a $2.1 trillion debt. This burden was only regained by the superhuman effort of William Jefferson Clinton and the largest peacetime expansion of our American economy since World War II. Now, once again, under a Republican administration of this time only 8 years, we are burdened with a debt of $12 trillion. And beyond that, we are faced with the debts being made to the rest of the world, the so-called trade deficits or national debt. The product of the American worker thus now belongs to another nation and to foreign creditors. Every worker, every citizen, every family now owes $42,000, each commandeered by a foreigner. The American people, after 25 or 30 years, in consequence of this fact that they will never be able to pay off the debt that is demanded of it, will have so gigantic a sum still owing that practically they will be forced to answer and produce more than they are each day and today. What will be the end of such a dangerous and enslaving policy? Well, the answer is quite simple. Mortgaging of our land, enslavement to multinational corporations of our labor and our strength. Therefore, in the economic sphere, the strong, physical, conservative, Republican economy of the 1980s and the past 8 years, of which we hear so much, was in truth no achievement, but it was merely the beginning of the collapse. Thank you very much.